Welcome, everybody. Hello. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, coming at you live from Esch-sur-Alzette in Luxembourg, the city so nice they named it thrice. We'll give it just a few minutes for people to filter in. I'll turn the music down a little bit so you can actually hear. We are here to talk about the House of Representatives Articles of Impeachment. Impeachment. Come on, like this word is not powerful enough. We are removing a president from office. This is not some small corporation. This is not some small country. This is 340 million people being led by one person, and we're trying to get him out. If these things are true, let's find out what the House of Representatives is talking about, what they've charged him with, and whether I think it will stick, what we think will happen. We're also going to go over the impeachment process, literally the purposes of impeachment and all that as well. So join us on Lawful Masses today as we discuss the House of Representatives Articles of Impeachment against the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Welcome, everybody. This is Lawful Masses, your favorite legal news and education channel. I keep looking over here because my camera is normally right in front of me, but you're over here now, so I've got to get used to this. This is the document that was just released yesterday by the 116th Congress, the House of Representatives, impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. We're going to go over this document twice. We're going to go over the impeachment articles now, and then we're going to go through what impeachment involves in case you would like to find out more about that process. And then we're going to go over it again at the end in the hopes that it will make more sense once you know why we're doing it. So let's, without further ado, jump straight into every word of this document. This is Mr. Nadler. Ralph Nader, I believe, is the head of the committee that whatever... I don't even know which committee this is from because the line is blank and I wasn't paying attention. So this is from Ralph Nader, not him personally, but from the committee. Resolution impeaching Donald John Trump, President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. Be it resolved that Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, and that the following articles of impeachment be exhibited to the United States Senate. Articles of impeachment exhibited by the House of Representatives of the United States of America in the name of itself and of the people of the United States of America against Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, in maintenance and support of its impeachment against him for high crimes and misdemeanors. The first article is abuse of power. Now, spoiler alert, these are short. This is only 9 pages long, and we're already on the second page. So these are really short, and we're going to talk about why that might be too. But let's go into the details first. The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment, and that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors in his conduct of the office of the President of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. And that's really important. Remember, he is a governor. He is meant to govern the country, the executive branch. What does executive mean? Does it mean you're the CEO? Well, maybe, but there's more to executive than you're the top dog. Execute, run, to perform, to execute. So he has to execute the office, the powers of his office faithfully, and he has to govern. These are requirements. Using the powers of his high office, President Trump solicited the interference from a foreign government, Ukraine, in the 2020 United States presidential election. He did so through a scheme or course of conduct that included soliciting the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations that would benefit his re-election, harm the election prospects of a political opponent, and influence the 2020 United States presidential election to his advantage. President Trump also sought to pressure the government of Ukraine to take these steps by conditioning official United States government acts of significant value to Ukraine on, so they're conditioning it on, its public announcement of the investigations. President Trump engaged in this scheme or course of conduct for corrupt purposes in pursuit of personal political benefit. In doing so, President Trump used the powers of the presidency in a manner that compromised the national security of the United States and undermined the integrity of the United States democratic process. He thus ignored and injured the interests of the nation. President Trump engaged in this scheme or course of conduct through the following means. 1. President Trump, acting both directly and through his agents, within and outside the United States government, corruptly solicited the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations into a political opponent, former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr., and a discredited theory promoted by Russia alleging that Ukraine, rather than Russia, interfered in the 2016 United States presidential election. Which, what would we call that? We'd call that a false flag operation. With the same corrupt motives, President Trump acted both directly and through his agents within and outside the U.S. government, conditioned two official acts on the public announcements that he had requested. 1, or A, the release of $391 million of United States taxpayer funds that Congress had appropriated on a bipartisan basis for the purpose of providing vital military and security assistance to Ukraine to oppose Russian aggression, and which President Trump had ordered suspended. Now, remember, Ukraine, particularly Crimea, was recently invaded by Russia. Remember, they fired a Buk missile at a passenger jet and shot down a passenger jet over Ukraine, and it was traced back to Russia, not Ukraine. You remember this? This just happened a couple of years ago, and now all of a sudden, the U.S. president, who was elected allegedly with help from Russia, is suddenly damaging Ukraine. Russia wants to damage Ukraine. No, there couldn't be a connection. He had requested a head of state meeting at the White House, which the president of Ukraine sought to demonstrate continued United States support for the government of Ukraine in face of Russian aggression. Faced with the public revelation of his actions, President Trump ultimately released the military and security assistance to the government of Ukraine, but has persisted in openly and corruptly urging and soliciting Ukraine to undertake investigations for his personal political benefit. Another thing that I never understood about this is, why do we need Ukraine to investigate things? Does President Trump not realize that he's the president? I mean, he can order an investigation into something. And if the investigation doesn't turn out, I guess the investigation didn't turn out the way he liked, so that's why he asked somebody else. He wanted a second opinion. He didn't trust the American authorities that he appointed to investigate things. Because the investigation outcome wasn't something that he wanted, he has to go do this. Now, most people, me included, live our lives based on our experience, based on our facts. If I find a actual fact that flies in the face of my belief system, I challenge my belief system and try to incorporate that fact or do more research, etc., etc., etc. Here we have the opposite. He has decided what he wants the outcome to be, and now we're going to make up facts, which are not facts, of course, if they're lies. We're going to make up stories and things and tell people things that are not true. This is coming from a government. This is coming from the person who's supposed to be governing the country, making things better for the whole country, and instead he's using it for personal gain. I have absolutely no problem with this impeachment process. These actions were consistent with President Trump's previous invitations of foreign interference in United States elections. In all of this, President Trump abused the powers of the presidency by ignoring and injuring national security and other vital national interests to obtain an improper personal political benefit. He has also betrayed the nation by abusing his high office to enlist a foreign power in corrupting democratic elections. Wherefore, President Trump, by such conduct, has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to national security and the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-governance and the rule of law. President Trump thus warrants impeachment and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office or honor, trust, or profit under the United States. The second article, and there's only 2 articles, the second and final article is obstruction of Congress. The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives shall have the sole power of impeachment, and that the President shall be removed from office on impeachment for, and conviction of, which is the conviction parts in the Senate, treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. In his conduct of the office of the President of the U.S., and in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of President of the United States, and, to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the U.S., and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, which is literally a quote from the Constitution. He has to faithfully execute the laws. That's his job. He's not doing his job, and people are defending him. That's weird. Like, doing your job. Donald Trump has directed the unprecedented, categorical, and indiscriminate defiance of subpoenas issued by the House of Representatives pursuant to its sole power of impeachment. President Trump has abused the powers of the presidency in a manner offensive to and subversive of the Constitution, in that the House of Representatives has engaged in an impeachment inquiry focused on President Trump's corrupt solicitation of the government of Ukraine to interfere in the 2020 presidential election. As part of this impeachment inquiry, the committees undertaking the investigation served subpoenas seeking documents and testimony deemed vital to the inquiry from various executive branch agencies and offices and current and former officials. In response, without lawful cause or excuse, President Trump directed executive branch agencies, offices, and officials not to comply with those subpoenas. Indeed, we saw this. This is not even open for dispute because he openly told all of these agencies not to respond to the subpoenas. That is obstruction of justice, just tried and straight through, right out of the book. That's the textbook definition, the textbook case. Somebody sends a subpoena, and some other person says, "Hey, don't you respond to that?" That's illegal. You can't do that. You can't tell someone to not respond to a lawful subpoena. If the subpoena was unlawful, you go to a court and get a court order saying it's unlawful. Obviously, this is not an unlawful subpoena, or they would have done that. President Trump thus interposed the powers of the presidency against the lawful subpoena of the House of Representatives and assumed to himself functions and judgments necessary to the exercise of the sole power of impeachment vested by the Constitution in the House of Representatives. In other words, it is not his job to investigate himself and declare himself exonerated. It is a check on the presidential branch by the judiciary, and, in this case, by the legislature. They are 100% allowed to do this. And you might remember this exact opposite situation, well, not exact opposite, but a similarly opposite situation happened with Bill Clinton, who lied under oath, basically obstructing justice about his relationships, personal relationships in the White House. Inappropriate, personal, that I can't, we're on YouTube. I can't say certain things. If I said the words, what happened, in fact, it's probably already demonetized, but you know what I mean. So, massive hypocrite. Anyone who doesn't believe that President Trump has to respond to an impeachment inquiry is a massive hypocrite. Just an absolutely massive, total hypocrite. Because this is just 23 years ago, President Bill Clinton was impeached by the House for lying under oath. This is arguably much worse. Not only did he enrich himself with the office, he also lied under oath about, he didn't lie under oath. He obstructed the subpoenas. He just, instead of lying under oath, just don't say anything. And unfortunately, while he doesn't have to testify on his own behalf or anything, I don't believe so. Fifth Amendment probably protects him too. The documents still need to be, the subpoena still needs to be responded to. We still need to see the documents, and we need to see what's been going. This is government. This is not some secret corporation. This is not Apple Computer, and Steve Jobs gets to be an eccentric billionaire. This is the President of the United States. This is like if you work for a nonprofit corporation. You have lots of paperwork to file. You have to tell everybody who makes what kind of money and how they make decisions, and a board has to meet. Well, the board of directors is the legislature. The House and Senate are the board of directors, and the executive is the guy in charge, or girl, the guy or person in charge of executing the directives of the board. The president executes the laws made by the legislature. The judiciary answers any disputes over that. Real simple stuff, and massive hypocrisy. President Trump abused the powers of his high office through the following means. 1. Directing the White House to defy a lawful subpoena by withholding the production of documents sought therein by the committees. 2. Directing other executive branch agencies and offices to defy lawful subpoenas and withhold the production of documents and records from the committees, in response to which the Department of State, Office of Management and Budget, Department of Energy, and Department of Defense refused to produce a single document or record. Directing current and former executive branch officials not to cooperate with the committees, in response to which 9 administration officials denied subpoenas for testimony, namely John Mulvaney, Robert Blair, John Eisenberg, Michael Ellis, Preston Griffith, Russell Vaught, Michael Duffy, Brian McCormick, and Ulrich Breckbull. These actions were consistent with President Trump's previous efforts to undermine United States government investigations into foreign interference in United States elections. Through these actions, President Trump sought to arrogate to himself the right to determine the propriety, scope, and nature of an impeachment inquiry into his own conduct, as well as the unilateral prerogative to deny any and all information to the House of Representatives in the exercise of its sole power of impeachment. In the history of the Republic, no president has ever ordered the complete defiance of an impeachment inquiry or sought to obstruct and impede so comprehensively the ability of the House of Representatives to investigate high crimes and misdemeanors. This abuse of office served to cover up the president's own repeated misconduct and to seize and control the power of impeachment, and thus to nullify a vital constitutional safeguard vested solely in the House of Representatives. So back to the massive hypocrisy of this is going to flip, right? So if this is somehow okay, which is, of course it's not, but if Trump's behavior is somehow okay, well, then it's going to have to be okay for the next Democratic president, who's going to be able to completely defy Congress and do whatever the heck they want because the next Democratic president is going to be an elected king instead of Donald Trump being a king. Well, Donald Trump is not a king. Again, he is the executor. He is the person who has duties. He has a job. He applied for a job. He campaigned for a job. He won the election getting the job. And then he didn't do the job. Not only did he not do the job, he used the job for his own personal gain. So he's like filling up his pockets with items from the store. You know, he's in charge of the store, managing the store, and he's filling up his pockets with stuff. And he's asking other people to like misdirect and redirect and lie and everything for him. He's obstructing when the police come and knock on the door and say, hey, we see you filling up your pockets with stuff. You can't do that. And they knock on the door and he's like, I'm not going to open the door. But he doesn't have that right. This is not a private citizen anymore. And this is not some person who is above the law. This all baffles me as to how we're even here discussing whether his actions are right or wrong. They are so clearly wrong. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. And I've got a very interesting perspective here because I have voted both ways. I have voted for Republicans. I have voted for Democrats. I am a Second Amendment firearm, not here in Luxembourg, but in America. I have a license for my firearm, or a license to carry, yeah. I have a firearm. I train. I do 3-gun. I compete. I'm no good at it. I'm good. I'm confident in my ability to defend myself, but I'm not going to win any competitions or anything like that. I just have fun with it. I believe in small government. I believe the government should be no bigger than it needs to be to govern properly. But I also believe in making laws to govern properly. That the fair and free market does actually require some modicum of regulation so it stays fair. Otherwise, it will quickly become an unfair and unfree market without regulation. So the free market needs regulation, but it also needs to be the minimum regulation necessary to affect it. Overton window, I believe is what we call it. So I'm firmly in the Overton window. Where the heck are the people who believe that this kind of crap is okay? This abuse of power served to cover up the president's own repeated misconduct and to seize. Yeah, we read that already. In all of this, President Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of the constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President Trump, by such conduct, has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-government and the rule of law. President Trump thus warrants impeachment and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold or enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. And that's it. It's not even like signed or anything. It's just that's their draft or whatever, and then I imagine there's a final official copy someplace. So that's the Articles of Impeachment, just the two: obstruction of justice and the asking Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden in return for releasing aid that was already earmarked for Ukraine. Now, how does that work? So, can a board of directors issue a directive? So can the legislature make a law, and can then the CEO say, I'm not going to do it? Can the board of directors say, release $300 million to Ukraine, and the CEO go, no? So the board just fires the CEO and gets a new CEO, right? That's what we're doing here. This is nothing out of the ordinary. This is completely normal. Yet there's about 40% of the United States citizens who think that we need to get rid of the three branches of government and go straight back to having a king. And I don't get that. Why we would want to go under a benevolent dictator, unless really that's like the desperate death rattle of some person who's really losing their mind, losing their belief system, because they can't incorporate actual facts into their reality and continue to live a normal life. So think of it this way. I'm walking down the street and I see a car coming. Car's coming really fast. I can't tell whether the car's going to stop in time. What do? I step out of the way. So we're talking about people who for some reason are faced with an actual fact coming in their direction, and they won't change their mind to accommodate a reality. Instead, they will stand there stubbornly, and even if the car hits them, say that they were somehow in the right. These are righteous people. That's a good word for it. These are righteous people who think that they believe in Donald Trump, and they believe that he will bring benefits to them in some way, and they don't have any room in their brain for reality, for actual facts. I can say this with certainty. Like, I'm not speaking out of lack of knowledge. This is not secondhand or third-hand knowledge. I grew up with parents who eventually then voted for Donald Trump and extolled the virtues of Donald Trump and how he's going to save America and bring back jobs and get the leeches out of the society and send the immigrants back to Mexico, and it just keeps getting worse. Like, I don't even want to say some of the stuff that I've heard. Like, here's something that I was right on the border there, like literally a border, because it's the border. Someone, I'm not going to say who because it's just so terrible. Please shoot the immigrants, but don't shoot to kill. Someone related to me by blood said that.
Man,
these
that is really
are
gross.
lost people who believe righteously in a reality that does not exist. And believe you me, I spent 2 years trying to convince my parents that Donald Trump is not acting like a president or acting in the best interest of the country or even acting in any sort of governance capacity at all. Like, it's okay if we have a bad president. Like, I don't like it, but, okay, so it's fine. It's, it happens. Somebody doesn't do a great job or whatever. This is not that. This is not someone doing a poor job. This is someone intentionally not doing their job. Intentionally not doing their job in order to intentionally hurt the United States. I don't think people now understand how damaging this has already been and how much we're not going to recover from this for the next 20 years or more. It might be even more. It might be my lifetime. I might be dead before we fully recover. Or maybe we may never recover. Maybe it's already altered the United States culture in a way that we'll never get over. Like, it altered it, and now we're on a different path. We're on a different timeline, and we're in a different universe. It's not galaxy, it's not universe C-137. It's something else. We switched, and we flipped, and we're in a new reality now. And this has changed America, I think. Well, let's continue because I did promise you more. So let's go over just a few parts of this impeachment process. In general, the impeachment process is a constitutional remedy addressed to serious offenses against the system of government. And remember, since we're lawyers and this is law school, it's not. I'm speaking tongue in cheek, but we want to know who our author is, right? We always want to know who is speaking and assess their credibility, right? So this is from the GPO, the U.S. government. I forget what the GPO stands for. Brandon, if you could look it up and tell me. The purpose of impeachment is not personal punishment. Its function is primarily to maintain constitutional government. So again, we're firing the CEO. We're not putting him in jail, although after other investigations, if there is criminal conduct, maybe something will happen. But right now, impeachment is not about jail or punishment or anything. Impeachment is about removing the obstructing person who's not running government the way they're supposed to, and hopefully getting someone in there that is capable of running the government. And remember, it's not like impeachment means we just suddenly re-elect or anything like that. No, vice president becomes president. It's not like the Democrats are taking over or something if they win the impeachment inquiry. Just Pence becomes president. So what?
That's the government publishing office, by the way.
Government publishing office. There you go. Impeachment proceedings have been initiated more than 60 times since the adoption of the Constitution. 15 of these cases resulted in impeachment by the House. Andrew Johnson in 1868, William Belknap in 1876, Senator Blount in 1799, and 12 federal judges. So a senator, 2 presidents, a president, a secretary, a senator, and 12 federal judges Only 7 impeachments have led to Senate convictions. I'm assuming Clinton's in there too. And an impeachment is instituted by a written accusation called the Articles of Impeachment, which state the offenses charged. The articles serve the same purpose as an indictment in an ordinary criminal proceeding. So you weren't wrong before, Brandon. I apologize for correcting you and saying this wasn't a criminal proceeding. It's similar to a criminal proceeding. The impeachment power is delineated by the U.S. Constitution. The sole power of impeachment is vested in the House, Article 1, Section 2. The Senate is given the sole power to try the impeachments, Article 1, Section 3. Impeachments may be brought against the President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States, Article 2, Section 4. Conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes or misdemeanors, Article 2, Section 4, is followed by removal from office and may include disqualification to hold further office. The term impeached is used in different ways at various stages. A member rises on the floor to impeach an officer in presenting a resolution or memorial. The House votes to impeach in the constitutional sense when it adopts an impeachment resolution and accompanying articles. The Senate then conducts a trial on these articles and either convicts by 2/3 or acquits the impeached accused federal official. We'll skip over who may be impeached. We're not really worried about that. The effect of resignation. The House and Senate have the power to impeach and try a person who has resigned. It has been conceded in the Blount impeachment proceeding that a person who has been impeached cannot escape punishment simply by submitting his resignation. As a practical matter, however, the resignation of an official about to be impeached generally does put an end to impeachment proceedings because the primary objective, removal from office, has been accomplished. This was the case in the impeachment proceedings begun against President Nixon in 1974 and federal Judge George English in 1926. Nixon resigned following the decision of the Committee on the Judiciary to report to the House recommending his impeachment, and further proceedings were discontinued. And I think we're going to stop there on that one because the next document has a summary of why we impeach. Rather than going through this document here, we're going to go into this next one. Now, what did I just say? We want to know who is speaking. So we're going to go scroll all the way up here, and who is speaking? This is the report by the majority staff of the House Committee on the Judiciary, December 2019. So let's be fair here. The House Committee on the Judiciary is probably Democrats. So just fair, totally fairness here. There's probably a little bit of Democratic bias in here, if not a lot. But also, look for actual facts. Let's take a look. Summary of principal conclusions. Our principal conclusions are as follows. The purpose of impeachment. As the framers deliberated in Philadelphia, Mason proposed a profound question: shall any man be above justice? By authorizing Congress to remove presidents for egregious misconduct, the framers offered a resounding answer. As Mason elaborated, some mode of displacing an unfit magistrate is rendered indispensable by the fallibility of those who choose, as well as the corruptibility of the man chosen. So 250 years ago, they were thinking about these very same things. That some people will be able to choose some people are fallible in their ability to choose, and the person who is chosen is corruptible. This is just human traits. Nobody back then was thinking Donald Trump is going to be No, they were thinking humans are capable of being corrupted like Donald Trump has become corrupted. Unlike Britain's monarch, the president would answer personally to Congress and thus to the nation if he engaged in serious wrongdoing. Alexander Hamilton explained that the president would have no more resemblance to the British king than to the Grand Signior, to the Khan of Tartary, or to the man of the Seven Mountains. Whereas the person of the King of Great Britain is sacred and inviolable, the President of the United States could be impeached, tried, and upon conviction removed from office. Critically, though, impeachment goes no further. It results only in a loss of political power. This is critical. This is not Democrats taking over. This speaks to the nature of impeachment. It exists not to inflict punishment for past wrongdoing, but rather to save the nation from misconduct that endangers democracy and the rule of law, which is exactly what's happening here. When the executive, so imagine again, you're running a nonprofit, and I'll think about Forgotten Felines and Fidos. So I go to a board meeting of Forgotten Felines and Fidos. We sit around a table, we talk for 3 hours about what the shelter needs for its dogs and cats. I think we only have cats now, for its cats. And we hire vets, we hire techs, all that stuff. And then what happens if we said, okay, all that's done, will the executive director, which is what the nonprofit CEO is called, will the executive director please go execute? Go order these things, go hire these people, go build this facility. You know, they call the contractor on the phone and say, hey, I'm the executive director of Forgotten Felines and Fidos, and we need to build a new cat facility. Could you please give us a quote? And they give us, a quote, and we actually get a second quote and a third quote, and we decide which company we're going to go with. And the board says, yes, we've appropriated the money. We have made the rule. We've made the policy. Executive director, please go hire this person. President Trump has said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go talk to the contractor and say, hey, contractor, if you want this money, you got to give me some kind of kickback. I need to look good in the face. I want this board to elect me again. So I need you to go write an article about how awesome I am and make sure the board sees it. And when you do that, then I'll hire you. Does that not sound incredibly corrupt? This person was appointed the executive director to execute the rules and policies that were implemented by the board to make the cat shelter better. And they're going to go enrich themselves. And somehow 40% of the U.S. population is sitting there at home going, yeah, it's totally fine. I want my corporations and my presidency to be run like this. That is so weird and so offensive to me as a Juris Doctor, as a doctor of laws, as a person who has a doctorate in the study of law and justice and fairness and the philosophy behind that. That is extremely offensive to me because that is a double standard. That is rules for thee, not for me. That is hypocrisy, and it's not fair. It's just not fairness. Now, okay, well, life's not fair. Oh, well. So some people are going to be protected by the law, but not held to it. Other people are going to be held to the law, but not protected by it. Oh, well. I think that is lazy. I think that is lazy. I think that is narrow-minded. I think that is moronic, idiotic, and stupid to not evaluate the world as if there were 7 billion people in it who all have to live together, and none of us are here by choice. I mean, do you remember being asked when you were a kid, would you like to be born? We have a fiduciary duty to you after all. Here, before you're conceived, let's tell you all about the things you're going to experience in life. You're going to get beat up at 16. Your girlfriend's going to cheat on you at 19. You're going to get divorced at 23. I'm talking about myself, by the way. You're going to get a law degree at 30, etc. Do you still want to live this life? Do you want to be conceived? Has anyone ever asked you that? No, of course not. It's impossible. We are all here because our parents forced us to be here. It's kind of island, actually, if you think about it. We're all not here by choice. We all have to live together. And then we're going to turn around and say, well, I'm going to try to be more than you. I'm going to try to be more than you. Like, all other things being equal, regardless of whether I'm actually acting like a good person or not, whether I'm actually paying my taxes or contributing to society, I'm just automatically better than you. And the laws don't apply to me. The laws apply to you so that I can control you, but you can't control me. That's slavery, or that's captive. That's someone being held captive. That's not what society is. You are not held captive by society, except in the sense that you really have no place else to go. So since nobody's here by consent, and since nobody has any place else to go, why don't we all just learn to work together? And President Trump has lots of opportunities. He has lots of money. He's got lots of powerful people and all that. He can go buy a yacht or get that jet, the water jet thing, and go fly around. I don't have that kind of money. I can't go fly around in a jet thing. He can go do whatever the heck he wants. Why does he have to do this? Why does he have to then try to hurt people? That's where I draw the line. When you cross the line into hurting people, I am done with you. And this has crossed that line for me. So he is trying to gain political power, and he's doing so hurting people. I mean, literally, we got the kids in cages thing. We can argue about that. But this is also hurting people. When you don't give aid to Ukraine, Russia gets to hurt Ukraine. Don't you think that he wanted to hurt Ukraine? Of course he did. This speaks... Go ahead.
I'm sorry. This is the thing that I don't understand about the whole situation is what's the motivation? Like, we're talking about a guy who... There's accusations that he doesn't have cash, but he definitely has assets, right? So, like, he has money.
Yeah. I guess I got to get a little personal.
Let's not even go into that. Like,
no, I think we do. I think we need to go exactly into that. I'm very sorry. When I was 30... Yeah, when I was 30, I was diagnosed with NPD. So I'm on a live stream on YouTube. I have no idea how many of you are seeing this. I actually just tweeted earlier today about how I hate how I have to talk about medical conditions and things. But this is one where I want to. So in 2010, I was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. It was not something that I tried to get or something. It was not like, oh, I'm going to try to be, I'm so good and great, I'm going to be. That's not how it works. It's actually a response to the opposite. It's a response to being continually put down, to spinning your wheels. In my case, I remember my parents trying to build me up by telling me, oh, you just get bullied at school because you're better than them. Just remember how much better you are than them and all that. Well, that maybe contributed a little bit, but there was also a bunch of stuff in my 20s where my bosses and my job and stuff continuously lied to me and tricked me into basically not demanding a raise. Basically just keep kicking the can down the road, and I didn't figure it out fast enough. Nothing super terrible, but the 1,000 cuts nature of it kept meaning that I just kept getting closer and closer to some kind of breakdown. And I thought that I just had anxiety and depression, so I had seen a mental health person, and I had been put on various antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds throughout my 20s. Lorazepam, Adderall, which is for ADD, which I was misdiagnosed with. Ritalin, of course, then too. Lorazepam, alprazolam, Wellbutrin, there's half a dozen others. I can't even remember all their names anymore. None of that really worked. And eventually, I changed doctors. Eventually, I changed doctors on recommendation. And someone said this guy was a phenomenal doctor, quadruple board certified. So he had basically 4 certifications in psychology, including forensic psychology. He gave me the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Indicator, which is a very long test, takes about 2-3 hours to complete, and tells the results are for the doctor, not for the patient, and then the doctor interprets the results. Well, the MMPI interprets the result, and then the doctor interprets the further interpretation. And I was diagnosed, I had an 83% presentation for narcissistic personality disorder. You can tell I'm not a psychologist because I don't actually know all the terminology, but I'm trying here. So that was 2010, and over the course of the next 3 years, he treated me. It was a very unusual treatment. I'm not going to go into the details, but by the end of the thing, he had me retake the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Indicator, actually twice. I retook it twice, so I had to take it 3 times for him. And you could see the score go from 83% to 53% to 35%, and which he said, I believe it was under 40%, was no longer presenting with the disorder. Some level of narcissism or some level of presentation is normal, but this I was off. I was over. I was over the level. So, and significantly. So after that, I suddenly had many fewer problems in my life. I no longer had trouble in law school because I could now accept information into my brain, process it, and change my reality or change my behavior to fit the new reality that I'm experiencing. Before that, I could not change my mind in the presentation of new evidence very easily. I could learn things, don't get me wrong. It's a spectrum. I could learn things, but it was much harder. And I certainly couldn't take very many challenges to my thinking. And I guess maybe this is the part where I'll tell a little bit about the treatment, because his method of treating me was to find those things that were unchallengeable and reverse through basically neuro-linguistic programming. It felt a little bit like he was yelling at me and making me cry, but he was also challenging and killing off those parts of my brain that were furthering the NPD. What I'm trying to get at is it is a disease. I've had it, and I've been treated, and I recovered. And I'm not going to prove it to you, but I can prove it. Like, I have the paperwork to prove it. And that's what I think is going on with Donald Trump. I think he is so far in the depths of some kind of mental illness. Very much it could be narcissistic personality disorder. And you won't hear psychologists say that because they're not supposed to. You're not supposed to diagnose somebody remotely like that. Like, oh, well, I see the way he's acting in public. So I'm a layperson. I can do that. His behavior and my father's behavior match exactly the way I used to behave when I had narcissistic personality disorder. So and maybe you can take this into my credibility. Maybe this is my bias, but I also believe that I have a first-hand unique experience. I'm not unique as in like nobody else has NPD, but rather like I can look at my life experience and I feel a personal connection to this situation with President Trump, because he is acting just like I used to act. Unable to incorporate new information, unable to take criticism, unable to do the job if it didn't favor him. So only doing things that he thinks are going to work out better. If the job is to do something that he doesn't like, you just don't do it. Like you just don't have the capacity in your brain for something that you don't like, or it's below you. It's below Donald Trump to have to answer to Congress because he is above Congress. He is above the law. And I don't mean like in some tongue-in-cheek, like, oh, Donald Trump thinks he's above the law. No, I mean he really, 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 in his heart of hearts, in his belief system, he thinks and has justified to himself that he is somehow better than everyone else. And the thing that really gets me is he thinks he's above his own supporters, and he plays them like a fiddle, and they don't know it. And it's so weird to watch people fall in line, lockstep behind someone who disrespects them so. You can tell he disrespects them because all he does is say the things that he thinks they want to hear. And he does not actually do things that benefit them. Look at all the farmers who are upset with Trump for the tariffs issue and for not fulfilling his promises to protect small farmers. Look at all the people who are upset about the kids in cages thing. We separate children from parents all of a sudden. We didn't used to do that on the first offense. Now we do it on the first offense. And there is lots of case law about border crossings and illegal immigration, and it is not considered a level of criminal offense that we need to separate children from parents. Yes, previous administrations separated a few children from their parents. Not at this level. This is 2 or 3 orders of magnitude. This is 100 to 1,000 times larger than that. It's one thing, and we certainly could have complained about whether those children should have been separated under previous administrations, including Obama, but not something that you do. Again, I was a child. I spent 9 months separated from my parents, and it had a profound effect on me, because the person I was with was not a kind, caring, gentle person. I was basically a captive for 9 months. And we can go into that sometime, because I'm not going into that now. But believe me, it affects you your entire life when something like that happens to you. I've never trusted authority. I never have a good interaction with a police officer because I just don't trust. I just have no trust whatsoever for basically anyone in authority after that. So that's damaging. You need people to have reasonable amounts of trust in authority. So that also means that authority needs to be trustworthy. Thus, the ultimate question in an impeachment is whether leaving the president in our highest office imperils the Constitution. The framers were careful students of history and knew that threats to democracy can take many forms. They feared would-be monarchs, but also warned against fake populists, charismatic demagogues, and corrupt kleptocrats. The framers thus intended impeachment to reach the full spectrum of presidential misconduct that menaced the Constitution. Because they could not anticipate and prohibit every threat a president might someday pose, the framers adopted a standard sufficiently general and flexible to meet unknown future circumstances: treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. This standard was proposed by Mason and was meant in his words to capture all manner of great and dangerous offenses against the Constitution. Applying traditional tools of interpretation puts a sharper point on this definition of high crimes and misdemeanors. For starters, it is useful to consider that the two impeachable offenses that the framers identified for us are treason, an unforgivable betrayal of the nation and its security. A president who levies war against the government or lends aid and comfort to our enemies cannot persist in office. A president who betrays the nation once will most certainly do so again. Bribery, in turn, sounds in abuse of power. Impeachable bribery occurs when the president offers, solicits, or accepts something of personal value to influence his own official actions. By rendering such bribery impeachable, the framers sought to ensure that the nation could expel a leader who would sell out the interests of we the people for his own personal gain. Is this hitting home yet? I hope it's hitting home yet. In identifying other high crimes and misdemeanors, we are guided by the text and structure of the Constitution, the records of the Constitutional Convention, and state ratifying debates, and the history of the impeachment practice. These sources demonstrate that the framers principally intended impeachment for three overlapping forms of presidential wrongdoing. 1. Abuse of power. 2. Betrayal of the nation through foreign entanglements. And 3. Corruption of office and elections. Any one of these violations of the public trust justifies impeachment. When combined in a single course of conduct, they state the strongest possible case for impeachment and removal from office. There are at least as many ways to abuse power as there are powers vested in the president. It would thus be an exercise in futility to attempt to list every abuse of power. That said, impeachable abuses of power can be roughly divided into two categories: engaging in official acts forbidden by law and engaging in official action with motives forbidden by law. As James Erdell explained, the president would be liable to impeachment if he had acted from some corrupt motive or the other. This warning echoed Edmund Randolph's teaching that impeachment must be allowed because the executive will have great opportunities of abusing his power. President Richard Nixon's conduct has come to exemplify impeachable abuse of power. He acted with corrupt motives in obstructing justice and using official power to target his political opponents, and his decision to unlawfully defy subpoenas issued by the House impeachment inquiry was unconstitutional on its face. As much as the framers feared abuse, they feared betrayal still more. That anxiety is shot through their discussion of impeachment and explains why treason heads the Constitution's list of impeachable offenses. James Madison put it simply: the president might betray his trust to foreign powers. Although the framers did not intend impeachment for good faith disagreements on matters of diplomacy, they were explicit that betrayal of the nation through schemes with foreign powers justified that remedy. Indeed, foreign interference in the American political system was among the gravest dangers feared by the founders of our nation and the framers of our Constitution. In his farewell address, George Washington thus warned Americans to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of a republican form of government. Remember, he was not talking about republicans. He was talking about a representative republic government. And that is the same, by the way, that is the same exact sentiment. When was that? Was that about 240 years ago that was said? Let's see, 1797. Yeah, So about 222 years ago or more, George Washington said that the Americans must be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of Republican government. Well, who just said that exact same thing? Robert Mueller, in his testimony before the House of Representatives earlier this year, the very first thing he said, and the only thing he said that was outside of his report, was that the foreign influence by Russia, the foreign interference by Russia into the presidential election in 2020, the future one, the next one, the upcoming one, Robert Mueller said that that is happening and is the single greatest threat to America and democracy right now, and we need to be vigilant, and he said that we need to pay attention. And that's Robert Mueller. He's the Republican. Like, he is a tried and true, he is a Republican. I don't mean like he's a Republican in name only, like some of these people who are just doing it so they can, some people choose those things not because they believe in Republican values, but because they see a path. Well, if I say these words and do these things, well, then I can just be a Republican and become a politician. People do that all the time. They get jobs that way. People become teachers. People become lawyers just because they see, oh, well, I need a job and I need money, and, well, I hate this less, so I might as well do this. I personally have learned to absolutely love the law. Stockholm Syndrome has totally kicked in, and I am obviously very, very much a believer in fairness and justice and the philosophy behind the law. Robert Mueller is one of those. He is an absolute believer in fairness, justice, the rule of law, etc. And he is the reddest Republican there is. And that's what he said. So that's more or less two Republicans. But Robert Mueller and George Washington telling you that foreign interference is one of the greatest threats to American democracy. And here we've got a president who is literally openly asking for said foreign interference.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a partisan issue. Hey, is Kaylee home?
Yes, Kaylee's home. I will, I'm going to, yes, she's waving, and then I'm going to go back to this so that she can have her privacy as she comes home.
So I don't think that this is a partisan issue, this impeachment.
I do not see this as a partisan issue at all. However, in defending the issue, the defense is trying to make it into partisan. It's sort of like pulling out the race card. Like, ma'am, I'm sorry you can't sit in this seat, or sir, I'm sorry you can't sit in this seat. It's reserved for people in wheelchairs. Oh, are you saying that because of the color of my skin? Because I'm white, or because I'm black, or because I'm whatever. That's something that people do, and it's disgusting when it's done, blatantly and patently incorrectly like that. But that's what they're doing. They're pulling out the political card. Oh, well, you want to impeach our president for these very clear violations of law and these very clear abuses of power. Well, you must be doing it because you're the corrupt one. It's that Spider-Man meme where, like, they're pointing at each other. It's like, no, you. This is just so bizarre because you've got people who are obviously acting improperly. Their behavior doesn't line up with reality in any way. What they say doesn't line up with what actually happens. And that's somehow being defended by 40%. By 40% of the population. Which is just absolutely insane to me. I don't know. I really don't know what to do about it. This is what I'm doing. I'm trying to spread the word. That's the best I can do. In a letter to Thomas Jefferson, John Adams wrote, "You are apprehensive of foreign interference, intrigue, and influence. So am I. But as often as elections happen, the danger of foreign influence recurs." So Thomas Jefferson wrote to John Adams wrote to Thomas Jefferson saying that he also believes that foreign influence in elections is a every election threat and needs to be constantly we need to be constantly vigilant. Lurking beneath the framers' discussion of impeachment was the most ancient and implacable foe of democracy, corruption. The framers saw no shortage of threats to the Republic and sought to guard against them, but the big fear underlying all the small fears was whether they'd be able to control corruption. As Madison put it, corruption might be fatal to the Republic. This was not just a matter of thwarting bribes, it was a far more expansive challenge. The framers celebrated civic virtue and love of country. They wrote rules to ensure officials would not use public power for private gain. Impeachment was seen as especially necessary for presidential conduct corrupting our system of political self-government. That concern arose in multiple contexts as the framers debated the Constitution. The most important was the risk that presidents would place their personal interests in re-election above our bedrock national commitment to democracy. The framers knew that corrupt leaders concentrate power by manipulating elections and undercutting adversaries. They despised King George III, who resorted to influencing the electoral process and the representatives in Parliament in order to gain his treacherous ends. That is why the framers deemed electoral treachery a central ground for impeachment. The very premise of the Constitution is that the American people govern themselves and choose their leaders through free and fair elections. When the president concludes that elections might threaten his grasp on power and abuses his office to sabotage opponents or invite interference, he rejects democracy itself and must be removed. In sum, our history teaches us that the high crimes and misdemeanors referred to, mainly acts committed by public officials using their power or privileges that influenced or inflicted grave harm on our political order. Such great and dangerous offenses included treason, bribery, serious abuse of power, betrayal of the national interest through foreign entanglements, and corruption of office and elections. They were unified by a clear theme: officials who abused, abandoned, or sought personal benefit from their public trust, and who threatened the rule of law if left in power, faced impeachment. Each of these acts, moreover, should be plainly wrong to reasonable officials and persons of honor. Like, duh. When a political official uses political power in ways that substantially harm our political system, Congress can strip them of that power. And just to answer, just in case, I don't think this is floating out there, but like, would Leonard French be this in favor of impeaching Obama if Obama did this? 100% yes. Holy crap. The reason I liked Obama was because he's the opposite of this. And no, he's not perfect. He did a lot of stuff wrong too. Like I said, you only had a choice between two of them.
Yeah, did the Obama administration make mistakes? Absolutely.
Arguably, they committed an atrocity or two. I mean, he maintained the Afghanistan war, which itself is an atrocity. So, like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I disagree with Obama, but he's not doing this.
This is where
he didn't do this.
Partisan,
he didn't ask Ukraine. Now, of course, here's the question. I've heard this one. Oh, but Biden withheld aid to Ukraine a few years ago. Yes, Ukraine was undergoing their own corruption investigation. They were trying to get Poroshenko, whatever his name was, out of there, and Biden was acting officially. He was acting officially, and if he was doing this, well, then he could have been impeached. And why didn't the incredibly adversarial Republican government who put Hillary Clinton through 9 Benghazi investigations, why didn't they impeach Biden? Because it wasn't what everybody's saying it is. It wasn't illegal. It wasn't corrupt. It was an official act. The United States and the executive branch, the administration, had decided that they wanted to eliminate corruption in Ukraine, and so we're going to pressure Ukraine to eliminate corruption. That was an official act of government on the record and well documented. This is not that. This is not him asking Ukraine to investigate itself to eliminate corruption or else lose its United States aid. This is a person asking another country to investigate a political rival so that the person can be elected president again. You don't see a difference there? I see a huge difference there. And again, people have to be this has to be righteously willful in order to deny that those things are wrong. When someone says it's okay to grab people's private parts or shoot somebody in Times Square and all that, yeah, maybe those are just hyperbolic statements to rile up his base and everything. On the other hand, they're also incredibly scary statements that seem to come from a person who doesn't have limits on attacking opponents. And there are limits on attacking opponents. You cannot use your official capacity for personal gain. Within these parameters and guided by the fidelity to the Constitution, the House must judge whether the president's misconduct is grave enough to require impeachment. That step must never be taken lightly. It is a momentous act justified only when the president's full course of conduct, assessed without favor or prejudice, is seriously incompatible with either the constitutional form and principles of our government or the proper performance of constitutional duties or the presidential office. But when that high standard is met, the Constitution calls the House to action, and the House in turn must rise to the occasion. In such cases, a decision not to impeach can harm democracy and set an ominous precedent. And I'm going to stop there with this document because this... Actually, no, there's one more page. Let's try this. The fallacies about impeachment. First, contrary to mistaken claims, we demonstrate that the current impeachment inquiry has complied in every respect with the Constitution, the rules of the House, and historic practice and precedent. Second, we address several evidentiary matters. The House impeachment inquiry has compiled substantial direct and circumstantial evidence bearing on the issues at hand. Nevertheless, President Trump has objected that some of the evidence gathered by the House comes from witnesses lacking first-hand knowledge. You'll hear this as the hearsay. Oh, well, you can't take testimony from people, by secondhand. It's hearsay. No, this is not a court. This does not operate according to the rules of evidence either. This is a board of directors conducting its own investigation into whether or not its CEO needs to be removed. That's what this is. And there are no rules for, the board of directors has to only look into evidence that complies with the federal rules of evidence for court procedures. No, they don't. Just like in real life, court procedures apply to courts. Here's where it would apply. If the president was being criminally charged, which again, this is like a criminal charge, but this is only for removal of office. So a criminal charge that carries like a jail sentence, then he gets due process rights. Then the rules of evidence apply. And Miranda and everything. But in the same breath, he has unlawfully ordered many witnesses with first-hand knowledge to defy House subpoenas. So again, speaking out of both sides of your mouth, we're going to object to evidence gathering because it's not first-hand, and then we're going to prevent first-hand witnesses from testifying. As we show, President Trump's assertion regarding the evidence before the House is misplaced as a matter of constitutional law and common sense. Third, we consider President Trump's claim that his actions are protected because of his right under Article 2 of the Constitution, quote, to do whatever I want as president. And they cited to this. He actually said this. This claim is wrong and profoundly so because our Constitution rejects pretensions to monarchy and binds presidents with law. This is true even of powers vested exclusively in the chief executive. If those powers are invoked for corrupt reasons or wielded in an abusive manner, harming the constitutional system, the president is subject to impeachment for high crimes and misdemeanors. This is a core premise of the impeachment power. Fourth, we address whether the House must accept at face value President Trump's claim that his motives were not corrupt. In short, no. When the House probes a president's state of mind, its mandate is to find the facts. That means evaluating the president's account of his motives to see if it rings true. Have you ever complained in your life about when the police didn't conduct an investigation and the criminal got away scot-free? Well, I hope you're not a Trump supporter because that's what you're advocating now. Because he wants to have no investigation into his criminal activity. Even if the criminal activity is ultimately exonerated, even if the activity is ultimately not criminal or something, well, how do we find those facts out unless we conduct an investigation? And no one gets to say to the police, well, I'm innocent. And the police go, okay, well, we wouldn't normally believe, but you're President Trump, so we're just going to believe you. You must be somehow different from every other human, every other of the 7 billion people on the planet, and you are somehow infallible and incorruptible. No, he is not. He is not the mythological creature of the Second Coming. That means evaluating the president's account of his motives to see if it rings true. The question is not whether the president's conduct could have resulted from permissible motives, it's whether the president's real reasons, the ones in his mind at the time, were legitimate. Where the House discovers persuasive evidence of corrupt wrongdoing, it is entitled to rely upon that evidence to impeach. Fifth, we explain that attempted presidential wrongdoing is impeachable. Mason himself said so at the Constitutional Convention, where he described attempts to subvert the Constitution as a core example of great and dangerous offenses. Moreover, the Judiciary Committee reached some of the same conclusions in President Nixon's case. Historical precedent thus confirms that ineptitude and insubordination do not afford the president a defense to impeachment. A president cannot escape impeachment just because his scheme to abuse power, betray the nation, or corrupt elections was discovered and then abandoned. Finally, we consider whether impeachment nullifies the last election or denies voters their voice in the next one. The framers themselves weighed this question. They considered relying solely on elections rather than impeachment to remove wayward presidents. That position was firmly rejected. No president is entitled to persist in office after committing high crimes and misdemeanors, and no one who voted for him in the last election is entitled to expect he will be able to do so. Where the president's misconduct is aimed at corrupting elections, relying on elections to solve the problem is no safeguard at all. So I'm going to stop there with that document. And now let's return to the Articles of Impeachment, which again, they're only 9 pages, really 8 if you get past the titles page, and we're going to go through them again. So again, this is the resolution of the House of Representatives impeaching Donald John Trump for high crimes and misdemeanors. Resolved that Donald J. Trump, President of the United States, is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors. We're going to skip a little bit. And the first article is abuse of power. So the abuse of power accusation is that in his conduct of the office of President of the United States and in violation of his constitutional oath, faithfully to execute the office of the President and to the best of his ability to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Donald John Trump has abused the powers of presidency in that, using the powers of his high office, he solicited the interference from a foreign government, Ukraine, in the 2020 United States presidential election. He did so through a scheme or course of conduct that included soliciting the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations that would benefit his re-election, harm the election prospects of a political opponent, and influence the 2020 United States presidential election to his advantage. Trump also sought to pressure Ukraine to take these steps by conditioning official United States government acts of significant value to Ukraine on its public announcement of the investigations. President Trump engaged in this scheme or course of conduct for corrupt purposes in pursuit of personal political benefit. In doing so, President Trump used the powers of the presidency in a manner that compromised the national security of the United States and undermined the integrity of the United States democratic process. He thus ignored and injured the interests of the nation. Specifically, acting both directly and through his agents within and outside the government, he corruptly solicited the government of Ukraine to publicly announce investigations into a political opponent, former Vice President Joe Biden, and investigations into a discredited theory promoted by Russia, alleging that Ukraine, rather than Russia, interfered in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. With the same corrupt motives, President Trump, acting both directly and through his agents, conditioned 2 official acts on that public announcement: the release of $391 million of United States taxpayer funds. Remember what I said. Congress appropriated the funds on a bipartisan basis for the purpose of providing vital military and security assistance to Ukraine in order to defend themselves from Russian aggression. And the president had ordered that suspended. And public announcements that he had requested, the public announcement is that a head of state meeting at the White House, which the president of Ukraine sought to demonstrate continued United States support for the government of Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. So he held out a meeting in the White House. Faced with the public revelation of his actions, President Trump ultimately released the military and security assistance, but has persisted in openly and corruptly urging and soliciting Ukraine to undertake investigations for his personal political benefit. In all this, President Trump abused the powers of the presidency by ignoring and injuring national security and other vital national interests to obtain an improper personal political benefit. He has also betrayed the nation by abusing his high office to enlist a foreign power in corrupting democratic elections. The second article is obstruction of justice, or obstruction of Congress. The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives has the sole power of impeachment in his conduct as the president and in violation of his constitutional oath to faithfully execute the office and preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, and in violation of his duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, all constitutional duties, Donald J. Trump has directed the unprecedented, categorical, and indiscriminate defiance of subpoenas issued by the House of Representatives pursuant to its sole power of impeachment. He has abused the powers of the presidency in a manner offensive to and subversive of the Constitution, in that he has engaged in an impeachment inquiry. The House of Representatives engaged in the impeachment inquiry and submitted or served subpoenas on various officials. In response, President Trump directed executive branch agencies, offices, and officials not to comply with those subpoenas. President Trump thus interposed the powers of the presidency against the lawful subpoenas of the House of Representatives and assumed to himself functions and judgments necessary to the exercise of the sole power of impeachment. In other words, the House has the power, and if he's denying them that power, he's taking it. That's his power now. That's not the House's power. But the Constitution doesn't say that the executive branch investigates itself. It says the House investigates, nobody else. And then he abused his powers of his high office to direct the White House to deny a lawful subpoena, to direct other executive branch agencies to deny responses to lawful subpoenas and to withhold the production of documents and records, and to direct officials not to cooperate with the subpoenas and the committees, including Mick Mulvaney, Robert Blair, John Eisenberg, Michael Ellis, Preston Griffith, Russell Vaught, Michael Duffy, Brian McCormick, and Ulrich Breckbull. These actions were consistent with his previous efforts to undermine the United States government investigation into foreign interference in the elections. Through these actions, President Trump sought to arrogate to himself the right to determine the propriety, scope, and nature of an impeachment inquiry into his own conduct, as well as the unilateral prerogative to deny any and all information to the House of Representatives in exercise of its sole power of impeachment. In the history of the Republic, no president has ever ordered the complete defiance of an impeachment inquiry or sought to obstruct and impede so comprehensively the ability of the House to investigate high crimes and misdemeanors. In all of this, President Trump has acted in a manner contrary to his trust as president and subversive of constitutional government, to the great prejudice of the cause of law and justice, and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President Trump, by such conduct, has demonstrated that he will remain a threat to the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with self-governance and the rule of law. President Trump thus warrants impeachment and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. So, holy mackerel, I have a few thoughts. One, why are there only 2 articles? Because they're rock solid. Because you don't need any more. If they put 11 things, then you've got the population of the United States and the world trying to figure out 9 other things. and it's going to be really easy to muddy those waters. Remember we said about muddying the waters. You make the waters nice and murky and nobody can see what you dropped. So here, it's going to be much harder to muddy the waters. These are incredibly clear. They're so clear that it is almost discreditable. But that's the joke. But it's incredible. It's so credible, it's incredible. In this case, I don't see any way out of this unless it literally turns out that these things that happened with Ukraine are simply not true. But then even if it did turn out that they were not true, the president obstructed justice in denying subpoenas, which is what Bill Clinton did in lying under oath. So why is it okay for President Trump but not okay for Bill Clinton? Well, remember, it was Republicans against Democrats in Bill Clinton, and now it's Democrats against Republicans in Trump. That's why it's suddenly not okay. Because for some reason, the Republican political party thinks it is totally okay to have a completely different standard for one party than for the other party. That's obviously not fair. That's obviously not constitutional. And we obviously can't stand for that. But if you try to talk to one of your Republican friends about it, they pretty much laugh at you. It is cultish at this point what my parents believe and what some of my Republican acquaintances believe. Totally, they are completely, at least many of them are completely too far gone into the belief system that even evidence that flies in the face of their belief system won't change their minds. And that's just, to me, that's a level of mental health disorder that needs treatment, basically. So anyway, I have been at this for an hour and 23 minutes. Wow, very nice. So thank you for joining me. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and that is our show on the impeachment inquiry. Brandon, I haven't been watching chat. What have I missed? Anything you want to announce?
There was a $1 $10 donation that we can't read, but thank you for the donation.
Okay.
On Super Chat. And there's a lot of stuff going on in chat. Most of you are behaving, and I really appreciate that. Some of your stuff is being automatically held for review, and I'm just not touching them. So that probably means that they didn't appear in chat. I'm sorry about that. But that's just how it is, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I will do my outro. So thank you to all of the people who make this channel possible. We are a community-supported legal education, legal news channel. We're trying to increase our production quality. We'd eventually like to be able to make videos that are fully edited with lots of graphics, and I mean like custom graphics and like all kinds of editing and fly-ins and lots of cuts and really interesting videos. Think like Kyrgyzstan, but for law. We'd like to do something... Kurzgesagt, thank you. But for law, or some of the other like really good explainer channels, but for law. Legal Eagle's a really good one. Shout out to Devin. Go watch Devin's videos. He's really good. We're actually a little bit envious because he's so good at what he does that we need to like catch up now. So thank you very much to those of you who make this possible by giving us money, your financial support every month. In the month of December, our $50 plus supporters are Aspernari, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Kyle Mudrak, Michael Pearce, Spirit Bear, Jan Negrey, Daniel Perez, Snorre Wisotzky, Blackleaf, Joe Tyson, Benjamin Hitov, Steven, Rumble in the Bunghole, and Cute Grills in your area. Thank you very much for that very long list of supporters. And our $5 plus supporters will be in the description of this video because it's a live stream. So I'm Leonard French. I love you all. Any last business before I take out the stream? Brandon.
No, I just want to thank everybody who, added to the conversation in chat. We had like 800 people watching. Hey, Kaylee, say hello to Kaylee for me.
Say hello to Kelly.
Did you just say hello? Say
I did.
Hello
I said say hello to Kelly. I just repeated your words.
Thanks.
So I think we're gonna go get some dinner, and we're gonna do a live stream tomorrow for our normal production thing. It's probably gonna be early because I'm on Luxembourg time now. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Christmas Hana Kwanzaa, which is why we just say Happy Holidays sometimes. And I'll see you in the videos that drop. Love you all.